more details on the events of today. Joined now by IEC Deputy Chief Electoral Officer Masego Sheburi. Good to have you, Commissioner. Thank you very much for coming on. Let's talk about this issue of turnout. So more than 600,000, I believe, yesterday. Another possible 600,000 based also on the previous week of registration, some 500,000 or above that have turned out. Are these re-registrations or new registrations that we're talking about?
Thanks, Thabo. Today we recorded in excess of 600,000 transactions by 2 o'clock. We obviously still have to do the analysis of those transactions to break them down into new registrations, re-registrations, and those persons who were re-registering because they have moved the VD in which they were registered. We will on Tuesday share with the nation the breakdown of the statistics ahead of these elections. But for today, at 2 o'clock, we had registered over 600,000 in the voting stations and about 40,000 on the online portal, which still remains available for anyone who may not have had an opportunity to go to a station.
Is that a vast difference, suppose this final registration weekend on the online turnout than in the previous registration weekend?
In fact, for the first time, I think the order has been inverted. The last registration and the last day of the last registration, we always get big numbers, but it would seem that the second day of the November registration still stands as a record for registration activity ahead of an election. But we are still pleased with the turnout over the 2 days.
So if we are seeing, especially the young voters wanting to go online and registering there, why are we not expediting the e-voting process?
The Commission is indeed seized with the inevitable migration to some form of technology in elections. 10 years ago, we held an international conference at which the Commission called in experts and political parties to consider the matter. The outcome there was that the country was not ready for a migration towards electronic voting. We have been doing research and we should, in the distant future, issue a green paper to start an in-country discussion because the views on e-voting are varied. We need to narrow those down and also understand the business case for the country to adopt e-voting, because you don't just adopt technology for the sake of adopting technology. We must understand what is it that we need to cure with technological innovations. But from the perspective of the Commission, a migration towards technology in election is in an inevitability that we're going to embrace sooner rather than later.
But does the outcome, for example, of the 2 weekends of registration help you motivate your business case to say, well, if you look at the patterns and you look at how young people want to engage with this process, I can tell you that I've got a 21-year-old and an 18-year-old who are voting this year in my house. They didn't go and queue anyway, but I know they registered because they showed me that they registered. They would not have gone through that process, but they preferred to do it online.
Indeed, and that makes sense because if you look at the population in the country, consistent with the rest of the sub-Saharan continent, we are increasingly a very young population, and we're going to have to engage with the majority of the population in platforms on which they prefer to communicate, on platforms that they occupy on a daily basis. And we have seen the benefits of online registration because between November and yesterday, we had registered transactions of over 400,000, the majority of which were young persons.
What are you making of the comments? I mean, political parties have been flexing their muscles, others bringing into question the integrity of the IEC, saying we should watch the IEC with the hawk's eye. That's the one. And others, for example, are drawing their own conclusions. One party says you can attach registration and re-registration figures in each voting district to the voter turnout in the previous election and work out the share of registration into votes that one can expect to receive, almost saying, well, based on past patterns, we can preempt how we are doing and what are the votes that we are likely to get, which means if they don't get those votes, they're going to then bring into question the IEC counting process. What do you make of such comments from political parties?
Look, we accept that we are not beyond reproach. We accept, like, as a Chapter 9 institution, we must be accountable to the South African population. However, unfounded statements have a very deleterious impact, even on voter participation, because if as a party leader you go on record saying the IEC can be trusted, why do you expect that your supporters and voters will trust the IEC on voting day to record their choice correctly and translate that into representation if the endearing message that you preach is that this organization can be trusted? They are measures. If people think there is something that we need to answer for, in the administration, they can raise their issues with the commission. If the issue is at the level of the commission, there is an electoral court which reviews the decision of the commission, and the electoral court is accessible at no cost, and the decision of the commission may be reviewed there. There are statutory means for raising complaints as it relates to the conduct of members of the commission, and there are procedures to deal with those if they are established to be a cause to take action. But however, unfounded statements that are not followed by proper procedures have a very bad impact of changing the perception that people have of this electoral commission. However, our retort can never be PR statements. Our retort will be putting a show on election day that re-engenders trust in the work that we do, so that when we declare the result, the voting public can indeed have a sense that those results were free and fair, and they represent the aspirations of the voting majority.
I saw one of the comments, for example, around the integrity of the voters' roll itself. So if a party says, no, we are able to determine our own members who have registered and re-registered and new ones who are coming in, is that even possible? Are parties able to have their own voters' roll of people who apparently are going to vote for them that are registered?
Indeed, the voters' roll is available to political parties that contest election because it's one of the measures for scrutiny on the correctness of the list of voters. However, since 2021, the voters' roll that we provide to parties has redacted identity numbers of voters to bring it in line with the requirements for the protection of personal information of voters. If you have a person who has signed a support for a party, and they are also registered on the voters' roll, it doesn't follow that their support or endorsement of a party will result in a vote for that party. We know people get into stations wearing T-shirt of Party X, and they are in the majority, but when the results are counted, you find that Party X have not done that well. People will accept T-shirts, they will endorse people, but it doesn't necessarily translate into the fact that they support their causes, because the vote of a person is secret. So in secret, a person can make their choice, and that choice will be translated without linking it to a voter into representation into a legislative assembly.
But does that not create a difficulty for you? Because parties will say, well, they were wearing the T-shirts. We saw them in numbers. There were 40 of them. Surely those 40 are coming to us.
Indeed, but there are mechanisms at the voting station to say, here are the votes. We count in front of party agents. Party agents can raise objections. We reconcile in front of party agents to say, here are the number of ballots that were issued at this station. Here are the number of voters that have voted at this station. Here is the voters' roll to indicate that everybody who voted at this station was entitled to participate at this station. And here is the choice expressed by the people freely and fairly. So it does not equate that you have a rally, you can fill a station. It doesn't equate that will translate into the number of votes on election day.
Let's go back to what you've just mentioned, that the online portal, you're saying it remains open, because there are two or so messages that I was reading that I saw. One says, I am seeing activity on my ID number saying I went to register this weekend. When I registered a long time ago, I didn't do no such this particular weekend. Another one saying, I'm seeing activity, and a message came in via email saying I have registered at a particular voting district to which I have not actually moved and have not changed my voting district. So I'm seeing activity attached to my number, and I'm not the one who is actually carrying out these transactions. What happens then?
I don't want to speculate. Is there a way, Thabo, that you can get the details of those two people so that we can follow up directly with them and we give an informed answer without speculating?
All right. No,
but it shouldn't be. The only way that is possible, if a person has handed over their ID number to somebody and has also handed over their profile on a portal to another third party to transact on their behalf.
I'm saying that's what I'm suspecting. I mean, in some instances, we saw political parties having people's IDs and going to voting districts and registering on their behalf. Could we be seeing something similar to that?
No, it is not competent for anyone to register on behalf of somebody else at the voting station. Registration at the voting station is in person, and when we take your details, we compare the ID photograph to the person so that we ensure that the person who presents an ID is indeed the person who claims to be the holder of the ID.
Let's look at the other issue that also seems to happen online and maybe can create a bit of fraud and people being taken a ride off. Are you hiring electoral staff at this point in time?
Are we hiring electoral staff?
Yeah.
Indeed, we will be starting hiring, increasing the number of registration staff that we hire. Currently, for registration purposes, we hire just under 70,000 people. For the election, we expand that number significantly to about 210,000. Sadly, though, there have been websites, persons, and organizations that have been taking advantage of our recruitment drives to create websites that mimic the websites of the Electoral Commission for purposes of harvesting personal details of unsuspecting voters. We wish to appeal to people who are looking for employment opportunities in the Electoral Commission, never to click anything that is presented on social media. Go directly to our website, elections.org.za, and only click on those links for employment opportunities from those. Don't go onto sites that even try to mimic that look like the IEC. Rather, go directly to a website of the Electoral Commission and apply for opportunities from that website. We are trying. We've been successful with some. We've been less than successful with others because you shut it down in the morning, in the afternoon, it is created using a different URL, and you start the process of chasing that yet again.
Deputy Chief Electoral Officer at the IEC, Masego Sheburi, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for coming on.